The man who lived 500 years ago and knew the future, is it a real possibility or just a figment of humanity's imagination? A mere urban legend? Is this rumor ultimately a good thing or a bad thing? Tonight, once again, we'll examine whether it's true or not from a Japanese perspective. Section 1. Hook. The year 1999. The 7th month. A great king of terror shall descend from the skies to bring back to life the great king of the Mongols. Before and after, Mars shall reign by good luck. This verse was written in 1555, nearly 470 years ago. What do you feel reading those words right now? You might be thinking, it's just a coincidence. But hundreds of millions of people around the world lived through 1999 in genuine fear because of those lines. Some bought nuclear fallout shelters. Some liquidated everything they owned. Some decided never to have children. The poems of a single man changed the way human beings behaved in the 20th century. That man's name was Michel de Nostradamus, known to history as Nostradamus. Did he truly see the future? Or have we been collectively, catastrophically wrong for 500 years? Section 2. Introduction. Why does Nostradamus continue to fascinate humanity for this long? The answer is simple. Human beings cannot escape the instinct to know what comes next. We fear death. We fear war. We fear the collapse of civilization. And when, inside that fear, we catch a glimpse of the shadow of a man who seemed to know it all, emotion moves faster than reason. Nostradamus's prophetic work, Les Prophecies, has reportedly been one of the most widely printed books in the world since its first publication in 1555, second only to the Bible. 942 quatrains, written in French. Some people claim Hitler's name is hidden within them. Some claim the September 11th attacks are written there. Some claim the date of World War III is encoded inside. But is any of that actually true? Tonight, we face that question head-on. Section 3. Background. Michel de Nostradamus was born on December 14, 1503, in Saint-Rémy-de-Provence in southern France. His family were Jewish converts to Christianity. His grandfathers were physicians and astrologers. From childhood, he showed a remarkable memory and a gift for mathematics. He went on to study medicine at the University of Montpellier. But his life was a series of trials from the very beginning. In the 1530s, the plague swept through France. Nostradamus traveled from town to town, treating the sick. He reportedly saved many lives using revolutionary hygiene practices and a unique remedy involving rose hip preparations that were ahead of their time. But he lost his own wife and 2 children to the plague. That loss remade him from the inside out. His wife's family filed suit against him, demanding the return of her dowry. The Inquisition began watching him with suspicious eyes. The man who had lost everything turned, at last, toward the future. Around 1550, Nostradamus began immersing himself deeply in astrology and the art of prophecy. In 1555, he published the first volume of Les Prophecies, a collection of deliberately obscure quatrains, woven from archaic French, classical Latin, Greek, and Hebrew. Why write in such deliberate obscurity? That itself is the first mystery. Section for the complete story. Chapter 1. The birth of the prophecies and the queen who listened. The moment Les Prophecies was published, it became an explosive sensation in the upper circles of Parisian society. Catherine de' Medici, Queen of France, summoned Nostradamus to the Valois court. She commanded him to read the fates of her sons. What exactly Nostradamus told her, the details were never recorded. But after he left Paris, the queen appointed him royal physician and counselor. Something moved her, something he said. Then came 1559. King Henry II of France was fatally wounded in a jousting tournament. A lance pierced his visor and drove into his eye. He died 10 days later. People immediately pulled out a verse from Les Prophecies. The young lion shall overcome the old, on the field of war in a single combat. He shall pierce his eyes in a golden cage. That verse had been written 4 years before the accident. All of Europe trembled. Was it coincidence, or had he truly seen it coming? Chapter 2. The 1999 prophecy and the mass hysteria in Japan. Let's leap forward in time. The 1970s. Japan. A writer named Benmei Gashima published a book titled Nostradamus no Daijin, roughly translated, the Great Prophecies of Nostradamus. It would shake Japanese society to its foundations. According to Gashima's interpretation, Nostradamus had prophesied that human civilization would end in 1999. The book became a nationwide bestseller. Children lived in fear. Young people began saying things like, "If we're all going to die anyway, there's no point studying." Cults exploited the prophecy to recruit followers. 1999 was branded into Japan's collective consciousness as a symbol of doom. But July 1999 came. August came. December came. Nothing happened. Gashima later acknowledged that his interpretation may have been mistaken, but the damage could not be undone. The life plans of tens of thousands of people had already been rewritten for an apocalypse that never arrived. Asterisk Chapter 3, Hitler, 9/11, and the Bridge to the Present Day. One of the most famous prophecies attributed to Les Prophecies is a verse said to foretell Adolf Hitler. One named Hister shall arise from the west, leading armies. Some people argued that Hister was an anagram of Hitler. But Hister is an ancient Latin geographical name for the lower Danube River. Nostradamus was almost certainly describing warfare in the Danube region. And yet, people chose the Hister equals Hitler reading anyway. Why? Because human beings have an overwhelming compulsion to find patterns. Then came September 11th, 2001. On the day the World Trade Center fell, a certain verse spread like wildfire across the internet. In the city of God there will be a great thunder, two brothers torn apart by chaos. It was later confirmed to be a complete fabrication. Someone had simply made it up. Nostradamus did not predict 9/11, but the fact that a fake prophecy spread around the entire world speaks more loudly than any verse ever could. It tells us how desperately, how achingly, humanity wants someone to have known what was coming. Asterisk Chapter 4. What did the man himself actually say? Here we must examine the most important fact of all. What did Nostradamus himself say about his own verses? In a letter to his son Caesar, he wrote, "I see future events through a combination of celestial observation and divine inspiration." But he also wrote this, "I have written with deliberate ambiguity. Had I written plainly, I would have faced persecution." Are these the words of a true prophet, or of a very clever poet? Section 5 Theories. So what exactly are the prophecies of Nostradamus? Researchers fall into 5 broad camps. Theory 1. Scientific and statistical explanation. Skeptics make a straightforward argument. With 942 verses, it is statistically inevitable that some of them will appear to match some events somewhere. More critically, Nostradamus's verses only ever seem to work in hindsight. Meaning, when you look at a verse after an event has occurred, it seems to vaguely fit. But virtually no one has ever pointed to a specific verse beforehand and said, "This is the one. This is what's going to happen." Psychologists call this confirmation bias. We gather evidence that supports what we already want to believe and quietly discard everything that contradicts it. We may not be reading prophecies at all. We may be manufacturing them. Theory 2. Historical and literary interpretation. Most historians read Nostradamus's verses as historical poetry, a reflection of 16th century French political reality. The era he lived in was one of intensifying religious warfare inside France, Catholics against Protestants. Many of the verses can be read as veiled, deliberately obscured commentary on the political upheaval he expected in the near future. In other words, his poems may not have been prophecies of the distant future at all, but rather encrypted political commentary on his own time. Theory 3. Psychological analysis. Why do people want so badly to believe in Nostradamus? There is a psychological framework called terror management theory. When human beings become acutely aware of their own mortality, they develop a heightened need to feel part of something larger and more meaningful than themselves. Believing in an end-of-the-world prophecy, paradoxically, gives people the feeling that they are living through a uniquely significant moment in history. Apocalyptic thinking is not born from fear. It is born from a hunger for meaning. Theory 4. Occult and mystical interpretation. Mystics argue something altogether different. Nostradamus had a deep and serious knowledge of Neoplatonism, astrology, and Kabbalah. Perhaps he was a genuine clairvoyant, someone for whom time simply looked different. Some researchers point out that certain verses appear to resonate with concepts now debated in quantum physics. The nonlinearity of time, the idea that past, present, and future do not necessarily flow in a single direction. Modern science can neither prove nor disprove this. Theory 5. Conspiracy theory. Some go further still. Perhaps Prophecies was a tool deliberately used by the elite powers who secretly shape world events. A mechanism for making ordinary people believe in a predetermined history. Not the prophecy comes true, but rather, there are those who make events happen according to the prophecy. This is called a self-fulfilling prophecy. It may sound far-fetched, but the history of powerful figures using myth and prophecy to control populations stretches back to the very beginnings of human civilization. Is prophecy a description of the future or a tool of power? Section 6. Deep analysis. Let's examine 3 fundamental contradictions at the heart of this story. Contradiction 1. What all the accurate prophecies have in common, every prophecy Nostradamus is credited with getting right, shares the same pattern. All of them were interpreted after the fact. All of them required heavy creative reinterpretation of the original words. And in every case, the parts that didn't fit were quietly ignored. A French philosopher once put it this way: Nostradamus's verses are ambiguous enough to be retrofitted onto virtually any event after it occurs. That's not evidence of prophecy, it's a flaw in the poetry itself. But even that criticism gets flipped, because his defenders say he wrote vaguely on purpose. This is circular reasoning. A theory that can never be disproven is not science. But things that are not science are not necessarily untrue. Contradiction 2. Nobody talks about the prophecies that were just wrong. Nostradamus wrote 942 verses. Depending on whose interpretation you follow, anywhere from dozens to hundreds of them have come true. But the ones that flatly missed? Almost no one brings those up. He reportedly implied a massive world-altering catastrophe around 1567. 1567 came and went. Nothing notable happened. He suggested the rise of multiple great rulers at specific periods of history, and most of those went completely unmatched. Why do we only remember the hits? Cognitive scientists call this survivorship bias. We remember the predictions that seem to land. We forget every single one that didn't. Contradiction 3. The dark problem of translation. This is the most damaging problem of all. Nostradamus's original texts were written in archaic 16th century French. Many English translations differ dramatically depending on who did the translating. And in countries like Japan, readers were often working from translations of translations, versions filtered through multiple interpreters before reaching them. Which means, much of what millions of people read as the prophecies of Nostradamus may not have been what Nostradamus actually wrote. It may have been what translators and interpreters created. For 500 years, humanity has been wrestling with the words of one man. But were they ever truly his words to begin with? Section 7. Modern implications. Nostradamus died on July 2, 1566, quietly, in Salon Province, France. He was 62 years old. It is said he predicted the date of his own death. The night before, he reportedly had his notary read his will aloud, then told him, "You will not find me alive at sunrise." The next morning, he was found dead beside his bed. But his influence only grew after his death. If anything, the weight of Nostradamus's name is heavier today than it has ever been. Climate change, artificial intelligence, nuclear war, pandemic. Every time humanity confronts a new apocalyptic scenario, people open the pages of Prophecies, and they always find a verse that seems to fit. Is that the power of his poetry? Or is it the power of the human mind's desperate need to find meaning? What makes this more troubling is the relationship between Nostradamus and modern misinformation. Just as fake Nostradamus verses spread after September 11th, social media today is flooded with posts claiming Nostradamus predicted, fill in the blank. The vast majority are fabrications, but almost no one takes the time to verify them. Nostradamus has become a credible sounding source for fake news. Is that what he would have wanted? Or is it the ultimate irony of his legacy? Section 8. Final question. Tonight, we have looked at the life of Michel de Nostradamus, a physician who lost his family to plague, an astrologer summoned by a queen, a mysterious prophet who left behind 942 verses, and A poet whose words have been read by people all over the world for 500 years after his death. Was he a genius? A fraud? A genuine prophet? The answer may lie inside us. We see the future in his poems not because his poems are accurate, but perhaps because we are afraid of the future. We keep believing in him not because he was right, but perhaps because of the fundamental human loneliness that longs for someone, anyone, to have known what was coming. And yet, what if? What if he truly did see something? What if, right now, somewhere inside those 942 verses, a prophecy we haven't recognized yet is quietly waiting? Would you want to read it? And, even if you could, would you actually want to know? Leave your answer in the comments. Your voice is what keeps this channel alive. Don't forget to subscribe and drop a like. See you in the next episode.